Joy to have you here. Just in case you don't know, this is the State of Mind for Artists podcast.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of
And so,
episodes before, I remember.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
All right, love it. Um, so uh, the focus here is to talk with people who are either in the industry, working as creatives, or in the
Mm-hmm.
field, like yourself, who have experience with the ups, the downs, the lefts and the rights of whatever goes on.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have like these really high end state of mind people that coach like Olympic athletes and stuff like
Wow.
that. So yeah, so it's a really cool mix.
Right. I don't coach Olympians, so I won't be that exciting.
No, but you have something far different, which is equally cool.
I coach animators, which, expend as much energy as Olympians sometimes, I think.
Yeah, that's true. So the general idea of the podcast is to help artists suffer less and thrive more.
Nice.
We can go into like many things, but before we do, I just want to highlight that and then just jump into who Ken Fountain is, because I'm so excited to actually get to talk to you. That's so cool.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. I mean, I totally understand the idea of helping artists kind of get through that, because it's so emotional especially when you're in a job where you're being paid to be creative. Like, that's really emotional. Like, it's a hard hurdle to get over. I'm sure you've talked about it with a lot of your guests, that you have to be ready to turn on and be ready to go, and you can't get upset if somebody doesn't like what you're doing, and you can't, you have to find something to love about working that way. And I've talked about that a lot with my students, because I've been teaching college level students lately. And that's a really hard age to have somebody critique your work, So, yeah, I mean, I suppose that you and your guests talk about that a lot, I bet.
Well, it's very formless. It
Yeah.
becomes whatever it has to be. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. And the one thing that I found so interesting as I was doing like looking into your work, I'll post a link to your reel and your website and your shop, and like you've gone the way of like being an artist who's I don't know. Why don't we turn it around?
Oh.
Like I remember you started as a stage artist. Is that still true, or is
That is true. Yeah. When I was, ever since I was a little kid, I was the one who was always singing up on stage, like that was always my gig. I have friends that are still friends of mine to this day we used to do these like Disney reviews back in grade school when we were very, very little. And I have a couple of friends who were in them with me. We're still friends to this day. It's great. And we talk about that a lot, that it's so funny to think of what we've all done from there. And, I kept, like in school, I kept getting on stage. That was my thing. Like, I was always in the theater department. I was in choir, in the choruses for a while, but it just became strictly theater for a while. And my plan was, when I left high school, was that I was going to be an actor. Like, that was what was going on. I was also in a band at the time, but the band wasn't quite parallel with acting yet. I had planned on I was going to go, I was going to go act.
Yeah.
So this plan kind of didn't take me to college or anything. So I didn't do any sort of university study. I didn't do any sort of, formal training in anything. I was just like, I'm going out there and I'm doing it. Like, I lived close to, near enough to the city of Chicago, and lots of opportunity that I was like, what the heck, I'm doing it. So I got out of high school and I was just flipping pizzas and, and doing odd jobs to make money and trying to audition on the side. And that's when I was working at like the Renaissance Fair locally too, during the summer, because that was also a dream of mine when I was a kid. And I was a trained.
Sorry, can I interrupt you just
Oh
for a
yeah,
second?
yeah,
I
yeah.
love what you're saying. I'll cut this out. You're just gonna adjust a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Just 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
Wat ik niet gezegd had, is dat het een audio-interview wordt.
Ja.
Dus de thee is heel fijn, maar zou je echt totaal stil willen zijn? Want hij pikt alles op. Ik had er niet aan gedacht om dat even bij je aan te vliegen.
Maar ben je ook geen thee?
Nee hoor, dat is helemaal oké. Want ik hoor zeg maar, ik hoor water en everything. Thank you. I don't know, how good is your Dutch, Ken? Did you make anything of that?
No, I didn't make any of the Dutch, but I knew what was basically happening. No, it's funny. I may end up having to like let my cat out at some time too. So
that's cool.
But
so,
anyway,
and anyway, just to pick up where you left, you were
So I worked 5 seasons at my local Renaissance fair during the summer with some really awesome local Chicago actors, and it was really well done then. Like, it was a really cool scenario script, and for 5 years I was working as a exhibition sword fighter. Like, I was part of this troupe of swordsmen that would stage fights around the grounds, around the fair, and that taught me a lot. And I also, while I was there, got to study under improvisational artists, jugglers, musicians, acrobats, dialect coaches. Like, we had so much fun training while I was there that fed so much of what I do. And I felt like, yeah, man, I'm just going to keep doing this. But consequently, at the time, my band started doing really well. So music started to take over during my 20s. And then I just became full-time a musician and was like pursuing what every musician is pursuing, to get a record deal and all that stuff. So I was writing songs and performing a lot. And that took me through almost my whole 20s and into my 30s. And then, in between there, I was doing graphic design, which kind of fit, because as an artist, you have to promote yourself with posters and flyers and all that stuff. So I was a computer kid as well. I was really adept at computers. So picking up like early Macintosh and learning early versions of Photoshop and Illustrator and all those was really easy. And I started to learn Flash because I was doing websites, and I discovered that I loved to make things move around. I loved to animate. And so I took my ability as a person who could draw, as a person who loved computers, and a person who I discovered I loved animation. And I was in my early 30s already. I was maybe like 31, 32 when I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I'm quitting everything else. And because it all made sense. Like, we can talk about that a lot, and I talk about this when I'll go around and speak, is that it all comes together to me in animation. Like, every art form, visual arts, music, performance, and then digital art. And I mean, it's just, it all kind of intersects in this one art form. And I was like, of course, this is what I'm going to do. But then the stories are all about the struggles of trying to get into it from there. But yeah, I mean, is that something that I'm curious if anybody else feels that way too. Is that something that you feel like the other arts that you've studied, you see them all inside animation?
Yeah. That, like, just a tiny side story, but when I was never really into art that much.
Yeah.
I liked making stuff.
Yeah.
And breaking stuff. And
which is an art.
Which is an art. So that's a good starting point. And then I liked graphic design at the time. I wasn't too keen on that. I was really, really not into that at all. But I saw somebody who'd made a seagull fly with sand animation, and I was just,
wow.
I was like, this is like the ultimate. Like, if you can imagine it, you can animate it.
Yeah, seriously, that's the truth, and that's what makes it so frustrating, because you can imagine so many things, and you have to get your brain in your hands to make it happen, and that could take a lifetime or 3 lifetimes, to feel like you got it, but yeah. But I always think that helps. Like, when I the young people that I end up talking to a lot these days they don't have that perspective yet. Like they haven't, and I hope that I can at least clue them in. Like, hey, check out what you're doing. Like, go take piano lessons, or go take an improvisational acting class, or go take sculpture, or go do life drawing, or go, ride your bicycle for hours, or whatever it is. And and then pay attention to what relates to animation, and you're going to realize that a lot relates to what art that you're doing. And you know what? Maybe that's every art. Maybe painters can say the same thing, about everything else. Maybe I'm sure musicians can say the same thing. But that's what I discover. And that's just, again, it comes from, I guess, that background story, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So, I don't know. I've a couple of things that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So, like one of the things that I find very interesting is that you sort of have a convergence from a very broad background.
Mm-hmm.
Like most animators, there's the stereotypical animator who doesn't dare to get on stage, which I think is a huge mistake, because you're missing out on so much good experience.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to force yourself, but
yeah, I know a lot of animators that find it some other way. They just either stand up and do things in front of a mirror in private, or they don't do anything at all, and they can just imagine it so vividly in their heads that they can make it happen. I'm kind of slightly envious of that, like, wouldn't that be nice? But I always feel like I have to get up. I have to be up in front of people and do stupid things and fail and and to see what works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like you've gone from broad to very specific. You went to animation, but now, like one of the things that you created a while ago was what was it called again? The wizards in your machine.
Yeah.
Wizards in my machine.
Yeah.
Like you're stepping out and you're still animating, but you're now creating something.
Yeah, a whole
new.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. I mean, that's why I left feature film, is to do that. Like, I don't know if you meet people or talk to people a lot that are artists, and you hear this from animators a lot, that they've got ideas and they want to direct their own short films, and they want to be creators of whatever someday. Or I mean, they're creators now, but they want to be like, they want to be in charge of their own creative endeavor. And I have never wanted to do that. Really, you know what I mean? Like, I've written songs for my bands because somebody's got to write the songs, and I found a joy in it, but I never found like this, like, obviously it wasn't enough that I didn't throw away the rest of my life to do it, or could give up other things to do it. It didn't win. But animating, it's like obsesses me, and being in a shot and being in a character, I obsess over that. And so I've never taken the time to think about, what if I had a story I wanted to tell? What if I had but what I did discover is that I love to teach. I love to explain things to people. I love to find metaphors for things, analogies for things, and help people like have a moment of understanding. I love that. And I love to animate. So I went, okay, well, why don't I try to find a way to animate and give people a sense of understanding about something? And that's what, like, the whole Cracker Box project, that's what it is just, I'm finding topics and saying, okay, well, I'm going to find like the right words, and maybe even in music and animation and analogies and metaphors and all these things that come together to help describe. At first I don't know if you saw the first one, we did this little project called GeoMe, which was it was directed towards little kids, and it was using song and stories to kind of help kids understand the elements of geography, you know.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well. It was pretty cute, and I loved how it turned out. We're really proud of it, and it had some success. But you know, so we wanted to do something after that. And I also a realization I had, and this is something I think that's important for artists to admit, is that I don't know children. Like I don't have. I mean, I have stepchildren. They're older now, but I didn't raise young children. I've never spent much time around young children, and so the thought of me making something, especially animation, which most people think of as a kid's medium, I actually don't really know how to talk to kids, but what I do know is how to talk to adults.
Yeah.
I think. So I decided, okay, I'm shifting the focus of the Cracker Box mission to adults, and you know, and I'm glad that I just. You know, the friends that I was working with were all very oriented on being kids, and I just had to say, I just had to be honest, you know, as an artist, and be like, I don't know that language, and I need to be able to speak the language I know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard for animators because it's a kid's medium, you know. But I know a lot of people. Do you know a lot of? You probably know a lot of people too that are like trying to find the adult, like make adult animated movies. Not like pornographic, but you know what I mean? Like just like adult, heavy, scary themes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to do that for education. I want to be honest as an artist and say I love teaching things, explaining things. I love to animate, and I know how to speak to adults. I know to teach people things later in their life that they didn't really realize that they could learn, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like is that you're exploring and you're creating stuff, and then you're like, okay, well, in all honesty, I have to admit to myself that this and this is going on, and this is going to be my next step, and like I did teach some animation for like a couple of years, and I can see that when you teach animation, I bought a few of your courses, and I would like highly recommend anybody who's serious about this craft to just see what Ken is in store. But what I found so fascinating out of all the teachers that are out there creating stuff is that you're like you get it for yourself. And then you turn it into a metaphor, and you're like you made this tutorial about where I'm not sure which one it is, but I think about attitude and acting, or attitude and acting, where you had like the body center, where you like where's the focus of the body, and it's like that is like an instant insight for anybody who looks at that.
And I'd love to take credit for that, but that's an old, you know, acting. That's an acting tool was kind of came out of the early 20th century modern theater, you know. But it's funny because you know how like I think people when they think of acting, they think of method acting. They think of, oh well, I have to feel it and you know, and get to dive into my past and, you know, try to feel, you know, and there's some truth to that, but we're animating. We're more like, I don't know. It's more of a performance language. Like that's awesome if you can really, because people can do some really good stuff that makes me believe that an animated character is like in there and suffering, and people can do that. That's beautiful. But to really get the language, you have to realize what the outside of the body looks like. You know, what is it what's the shape and that your audience is reading like unconsciously within a split second, and how do you find that shape? And I love that concept of the body center, like because it gives you like a physical focus to, even if you're just standing up and acting it out, you can like act around it. You can. I think I talk about, I don't know if I talk about it on those videos, but like even costumes do it, you know, like you could put, this is something that I remember from the Renaissance Fair, because we used to wear those big blousy puffy shirts, you know, But man, when you have a sword, in your hand, and you have like a big puffy arm sleeve, and you even have like a cape or something on, you move in a whole different way, and you have to allow that to happen. You have to like feel that clothing on your body and the different weight and the different swing of fabric and all that, and just kind of dance with it. And see, maybe that's one of those things that you're talking about, that if you don't force yourself to go through that kind of stuff, you miss out on a lot of like acting interpretation or performance interpretation, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what I try to do is, for example, like every art form has specific challenges, and so one of the things that this podcast focuses on is clearing up the confusion and lostness regarding where your feelings are coming from.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's something that animators have to get to. Like, you can't make your character act unless you actually know yourself. Like, you have to spend a lot of time studying yourself. I mean, like, you have to, I even just if I'm like sitting here talking to you, like, what is my body posture? Like, what am I doing? Like, I always notice when I'm on a webcam, I lift my arms up so like you can purposely see like gestures, and I don't do that in real life, but it's, like, that's kind of cool that you recognize the surroundings. Like, I think I notice that in young artists is that they think that you learn like some techniques, and then it just automatically looks good because they're pushing the right buttons or something. And I forget that, no, you have to get like insight on human beings and insight on yourself, and not, and not discount what you're thinking and feeling. Like, there's a lot of people that are like, nah, that's a stupid idea. It's like, what? Well, then, but how do you know? Just do it. And that's another benefit to being up on stage, is because you don't have the opportunity to pull your punches. Well, you can, and you would feel ridiculous, but you're up there. It's a trial by fire. You just do it, and they're either going to respond or they're not going to respond, and they are either going to respond positively or not. And that's hard, man. I mean, that's like, I have friends that would just destroy them. Like to go up there and be judged, on stage. But if you're judged, but sometimes you're even just judged in real life. Like, if you're paying attention to yourself in conversation with your friends, with your husband, with your wife, with your mother, like, how are you sitting? How are you measuring your words? How is your, are you looking them straight in the eye? Like, what is it that you're doing, and why? And just like being honest about that, and storing it in your head is like tools you can use later. That's hard for people to do, I think. I mean, not just young people, but and there's people that have just grown so introverted that you forget that that's what you're supposed to be doing for your art.
Yeah. What I find like there's a lot of people who are trying to get into feature, and there's like a lot of people who are in features, like want to do their own stuff, and then like you're actually doing that for some reason. You have the bravado or just I don't know, I'm just gonna do it because I like, I don't know what drives you.
Without a net, baby.
But like for example, the Geomi project is like, that has to come from somewhere, and then you have to make it, and you have to see like, okay, that didn't land, but I made it, and it
Right.
was like a good thing. And Wizards in My Machine is another. It's like when you posted that, I already shared it on Facebook, because like, look at this world, because you're looking at something special here. Like there's something happening. Somebody's creating something. They're like, they have the talent and experience to create something unique, and it's happening.
And it's kind of hard to motivate yourself to do it. I think that's what a lot of people's, like, it's tough for me too. Like, actually, I should be farther along in that Wizards in My Machine project, and I have my own hang-ups that are keeping me, that are holding me back from finishing that too, like,
Yeah.
I'm actually working on them again right now. I just started this week again. Like I've been finding excuses not to be working on it. Like I've been picking up freelance work and just making money and being like, woohoo, making money. I should be making money instead of working on this. And there's just something I haven't figured out what it is that I'm like a little scared to get back into it, you know? So I finally made time to do it this week. And it's funny, I had 2 more scripts written, and I write them in verse. You know, they're kind of like, it's like poems, kind of. You know, it's just kind of abstract verse. And I read them. Like I had already recorded the voiceover track and edited it, and I was working on music to put behind it. And I just sat back. I was getting ready to kind of start storyboarding yesterday, and I started listening to it, one of them, and I was like, "This is crap." Like,
holy shit! You didn't just say that.
I did. I totally was like, "This is crap." Like I was writing it for me. You know, I wasn't writing it for people to really understand it and learn something. And so I was like, "This is way too pretend." I was telling my wife last night. I'm like, "It's just pretentious and wordy and too, you know, I'm trying to sound too, you know, I'm like, that's not the purpose." And this is really hard, I think, it's hard for me. Like I find it hard to write something plainly, you know, like I tend to overcomplicate it. So now yesterday I spent all day just rewriting, and I'm putting it in like rhyming verse, which I've never done very much, but I think it's more accessible, it's more entertaining. And so I'm gonna be. This is like gonna be my whole winter, you know, is struggling with how do I come up with an idea that pleases me, but does what it's supposed to do, which is teaches something to people that, you know, that are scared of learning, that, you know, or that teaches something to adults that they didn't know, you know.
Yeah. So if you compare, because I see that project and I see the project where you explain stuff about animation.
Yeah.
And is there any difference in that? Like,
yeah.
Does the animation stuff come out easier?
Kind of, because because the animation stuff I'm just teaching. I mean, it's hard because you're trying to teach somebody how to be interpretive and how to be an artist, and that's hard. But but at least I can come up with like, here's the steps that I go through, and I may not go through them like in a linear fashion like I teach them, but at least here are the steps, and you can try and you can use them as you want to use them. So that's a little easier. I think animation is a process, so I can break down the process. What I'm trying to do is like, so the goal of what I want to teach now are like things that adults don't know much about. Most of us don't know much about, and so we're scared of it. And we spend our whole lives like, you know, like things like computers. Like think about how many relatives you have that are like, I don't know anything about these damn computers. And they're really it's not that difficult, you know. And so I've been around them my whole life. So I think, well, I can help explain some of it. I've done it for friends in the past, and you know, that wanted to buy things. But there's things like monetary, or like the stock market.
Yeah.
Like, who really knows what the hell goes on in the stock market? I would love to, one, I'd love to learn more, and two, then I'd like to find a way to explain it simply and in an entertaining way and through animation to other people. Or, you know, how does I don't even know, like how does a star, you know, generate its energy? Like things that we just see every day but we know nothing about generally. You know, and that's the difference, is that these are like Crackerbox stuff is more like, here is a concept that I'm going, or here, no, not even a concept. Here is something from everyday life that most of us don't know anything about. So let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Teaching animation is different because that's something that is very specific and very specialized, and, you know, most people would listen to it and be like, oh, I'm falling asleep. You're only interested if you really like animation.
Yeah.
My wife glazes over when I start talking about that stuff. I mean, it's just doesn't do it. So that's the difference. Is that that's what drives me. That's what makes me want to create. I wish that, like I said, this goes back to like the what I think about friends of mine in the industry that have always been like, I've got stories that I want to tell, and I want to be the director of my stories. That's never been my goal, but I do love explaining things, and so that's what I want to take my art and figure out a way to combine it. And there's companies that are doing that or could do that, like a company like Google, for instance. They're creating that kind of technology, or even just the virtual reality space in general. Like that's a great place to explore teaching people things, because if you could climb through a computer, my God, wouldn't that be awesome? And I do you remember, did you remember the original version of Tron? Remember that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like movies like that, or the books like The Phantom Tollbooth, like blew my mind when I was a kid, like, oh my God, I'm learning about the inside of things that I didn't know about, or the Fantastic Voyage when they go through the human body, they miniaturize and they go like, so I think maybe that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm just wondering, as you're talking about that, has there actually, Pixar is picking up on that, aren't they? They're like,
right.
With Inside Out, they took a stab at psychology, and now Disney is with the new short. I should know the name,
yeah, it's like oh my God, it's like I'm getting it confused with Inside Out, but it has a name like that. But yeah, where they explore the different mechanisms of the human body or whatever somehow in a little story. Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad somebody's doing something like that. Like, and I haven't seen the short yet, but I mean, Inside Out to me was great. That was I think they did a really good job of coming up with like we were saying, like a metaphor for each one of these kind of parts of the psyche, and it's really cool. Yeah, I want more of that. I want to do that. I want to be doing that. Those are the stories I want to tell.
Yeah, but like for me, the one thing that I found interesting is the whole process of creation. Like, it doesn't even matter what it is. It's just how do you get out of nothing you get something.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't there before, now it's there, and that happens with art. It happens like with computers. It happens with the stock market. It happens like with everything. And it's ridiculously simple, but like once you start looking at whatever is was being created, like if you look at human beings, that question still applies.
Right.
And it's like, wait a second.
How do we turn out like this?
Yeah, and suddenly it's like, wait, what's happening now?
Right, and that's the about being like a creative. Like, you are, you're creating life from nothing. No matter what you're doing, you are creating life from nothing, because that life might just live in somebody's imagination, but it wasn't there before. And that's especially when I work with like college age kids, you get that blank canvas fear, like, okay, what do I do? I don't even know where to begin. And maybe this is where teaching animation is different than teaching, the Crackerbox stuff, because teaching animation is, to me, half the battle is teaching people where to begin. Like, that's what you're saying. How am I being creative? How do I create? Like, what is it that I can do to fertilize my imagination? And everybody has their own different little steps. Like, they'll go out and take a walk, or they'll go, but I mean, I just start asking questions. And you can't answer those questions unless you really spend time getting to know yourself. So if I'm trying to figure out a performance, and I'm listening to a piece of dialogue, or I'm just reading a story, a narrative that I'm supposed to convey, like you have to ask it questions. You have to say why, and what does that look like? What would I look like if I was doing that? And why? What are the different ways I would look, and why? Okay, then why would I do those different things? Or I would sit in a coffee shop and I would watch other people and I would speculate about why they were doing what they were doing. Why are they sitting like they're sitting? Why are they drinking their coffee so much? You know, why is their coffee cup close to their mouth or far from their mouth, far away from their mouth? Why are they slouching on their chair? You know, why did they choose that? Why is their sweater closed like that? You know, to me, those are the seeds for creation, is asking questions of the world and of life, you know. And I don't think people realize they're allowed to do that, you know? Do you find that
Yeah.
like even as an artist, like as you're starting off, I think you're supposed to make a statement, and you're just supposed to do. And I'm like, you gotta like ask questions first. Even ask other people questions, like your people that you respect, that you want are just, technique advice or workflow advice or whatever. But just, yeah, like ask. You've sat, like, I always feel bad when I do this. You've sat through classes with me before where like I'll get somebody's shot that I'm looking at and they're trying to, create an idea.
Yeah.
And I will start like going off in tangents based on each one of their little acting beats or the choices that they're making and try to flesh it out. But it's always me then turning around to them and going, but so what do you think they're feeling right here? Like right on this frame, And I more than often get the blank expression. Like, I don't know. And sometimes they'll say, well, what should it be? I'm like, well, that's your job. That's your whole job, is to know every moment what they're feeling, and ask yourself what would they do, and then create that moment, And so that's what it ends up coming down to me, is like, to get creative, you have to be brave enough to start asking questions, which a lot of people aren't brave enough to do in real life, I think.
Well, so that's what I find interesting. This is what gets me so, like, it's if you're going to ask a question and you obviously don't know the answer,
yeah,
there is usually, it might be that you think, oh, I don't know, and I should know, and then you get like a horrible feeling,
right,
going down the drain.
Someone's going to think I'm stupid for thinking this.
Yeah, I'm just stupid. You know what? I'm just not going to ask a question because I don't know.
Yeah.
But like with you, you're doing, like, I love how you're doing the opposite. You're asking the question. You already ask it, so no big deal there, no big loss either. But it sounds like you're not exactly like coming up with the answer. You're just like, well, what would you feel here? And then you're like, you get silent and you just wait and you're like open to it. And you're like you're not, like, it's not your job to come up with the answer, because the answer, well, like, the answer, you just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, and it's not, there's no way I'm going to know like everything to do for every situation. You have to try things. You have to say, I think maybe this, and you try it, and maybe it works, and maybe it doesn't. And you might feel humiliated because you put that up on screen and it didn't work. But you have to fail like that. You have to ask the questions, try to answer it. You either succeed or fail, and then you save the successes and you learn from the failures, and then you become a better creative person. You become more free, hopefully, to make those, what's the word, to speculate on those questions, Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. So here's what I think. I think everybody is actually is creative, but most people just shy away from like creating something like my dad. Like he likes to draw. Mm-hmm. He would like to draw, but he's like his level is still so low that when he looks at it, he knows like
Right.
and that horrible feeling stops him. But it shouldn't. Like, if you understand the process of what, like you just described, if you like you make something, it either fails or succeeds, you learn from it, and you become a stronger person. And eventually, people start saying like, "Wow, you're really creative," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, you're too, but you're not doing it." So,
right.
So that kind of
what's the 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, whatever that phrase is, that it's mostly just because you're doing it, and you're doing it and you're doing it, and you become more creative just by doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's you're just making, like when you're talking about your dad, I mean, I know so many people like that. I mean, my brother is like one of the most innately talented people I know, but he thinks the answers to his questions are wrong. I know he does, and so he never kind of goes over the edge. And I always want to, I just want to find ways to make people feel better about those, and not be scared of the failures or the scared of being wrong. Like for drawing, for example, like if you, that's one of the biggest complaints. Like, oh, like when you tell somebody you're in the arts or something, and they'll be like, oh, I can't draw at all. I'm terrible at drawing. That, to me, I'm like, well, you're just not practiced at drawing, but everybody can get better. But that's how you get better, is that you look at what you're doing, and you look at what you think is good, and you have to start by asking what's different about these two things. And you might not have you might be like, I don't know, and just walk away. But unless you go looking for those answers and sit in front of somebody that might be talking about drawing, and then you might recognize one thing. Like I remember that with animation. Like I was, I thought I was doing okay, and then I'd look at work that Pixar was doing or whatever, and I'd be like, wow, my work sucks. And I didn't give up. I went to like a class, and I just listened, and I was like, that makes sense. I can see now why this is different than that, and this is different than that. And you just don't stop asking why, and you try things out, and it works or it doesn't work, and pretty soon your work is up at that level, hopefully, and drawing's the same way, painting's the same way. Like I'm guilty of that in painting. My biggest crutch is I say, oh, I'm bad at color. I hate color. So I've always shied away from painting, and that's stupid. I should be like, well, what is it that I don't understand? And go learn and ask an instructor questions, or ask a painter questions or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, I realized this just yesterday, like, there's such a desire to feel good constantly, that it makes, like, when somebody's when somebody's breaks up with a girlfriend, or his girlfriend broke up with him, and they're like devastated, like, it is almost like we're saying that's not how you're supposed to feel, and you're almost ignoring the fact, like, well, that's what you're feeling, so, well, it's there. Right. Don't need to be afraid of it. I just feel that.
Right.
And then it's not such, and I think, like, and I shied away from that as well. Like, if like feeling bad, of course you don't want to feel like that, but if you're there, just be there.
Yeah. And
then you see, like, okay, well, like, for me that was like a huge moment. Every time when I see that, it's like, oh, but I'm still okay. Sort of, I'm like, I feel terrible, but I'm sort of still okay.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of heights. I'm like shaking and I'm sweating and my palms are like, but I'm sort of okay. And then you can start asking questions, because like you're open to learn something new.
Right. Like, what triggered that, and what is it that I'm doing now as a result of that? And let me just look at myself for a minute, and not be afraid, not be scared of looking at myself, and not, it's like it's when you were saying that, it just made me think of something, and now it just left my head. Like, the idea of being in the moment and allowing yourself to feel what you're going to feel you can almost be calculating about it. Like, you can use it to your artistic benefit, I think. And maybe that's a really, like, just weird way to live, like a calculating way to live, but if you're feeling, I've gone through tons of breakups. I've gone through tons of things that are great. And I try not to miss it. I try to record it, like, because I want to describe it in words, or I want to describe it in movement, or I want to describe it like I want to. Maybe that's because that's what I love to do. I love to like here's a thing that most of us don't have a grasp on, and I want to find a way of describing it that then somebody will listen to or see and go, yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I feel. You know, you nailed it on the head or something. That's to me the purpose of creating, is so that somebody else connects with it and you kind of join together as this human family. It sounds it sounds silly to say that about animation, but I totally see animation that way. Like, you create this movement so that other people recognize that movement as the same behavior that they have, the same feelings that they have. And you've just made the world a better place, because now people feel more connected, even if it's through a stupid cartoon character, you know? I'm like searching for that all the time. Like, even when I'm not working. So it sounds, again, it's totally weird and calculating, but.
Well, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like, to me, that, like, everybody who goes through an intense experience, and they can learn that somehow they're okay.
Yeah.
They don't have to avoid the feeling, and if you don't have to avoid the feeling, suddenly you can learn to draw. You can you can walk heights and be afraid. You can make mistakes. You can get judged, because, well, you're calculating about it because you have the experience. But it's like nobody shot you in the leg for feeling bad.
You're gonna survive whatever you're feeling, you know, and you just persist. You know, you just keep walking forward, and it goes. I mean, you can say that about the process of creating anything. Like, how there's always that middle part when you're working on something where you're like, that sucks. But if you just kind of keep going and you get through it, you realize, I can get through this. I can get to the other end, and it becomes easier every time. Well, slightly easier every time, but it does get easier every time, because you know that this is just a part of the creative process, just like it's just a part of being a person. You know, to feel bad about yourself, or to feel scared, or to whatever, to insecure. It's the same as being a creative person. Like, this happens. It happens to everybody, and you will get to the other side of it, and you'll have something you're proud of. Just like maybe at the end of your life, you'll be proud of your life, you know, whatever. But maybe you won't. I don't know. Yeah. You know, but that's, you know, it's hard. It's like a tangle. I always think of it like a forest with all the kind of tangled brambles and branches and stuff. Like, you just kind of, there's always those patches you got to get through. Yeah.
So is there anything that you'd like to say or add or highlight, or like, maybe you've got like a new something coming out that you're excited about?
Oh, what am I doing right now? I don't know. I've been going around talking a lot. That's been fun. Again, it's just been making me get more in touch with how to explain things to people. But I love that this podcast is about kind of creating. You know, that's what I like that it's the struggles of creating, because now that I know so many college age people, I have stepchildren that are college age. I teach people who are college age. Some of my online students have struggled with whether or not they're going to go to college or not. And I never went to college, so, you know, I have that perspective. The ability, or taking the time to giving yourself the time to explore all of the creative arts that you do is so important. And I sort of forgot that. That's why I was telling you about how I was just getting back into the Wizard stuff this week, because I'd forgotten why I wanted to do that. is because I wanted to take, not only did I want to do something educational, but I wanted to be able to like use everything I know how to do, and try to simultaneously create all of it, like writing verse, writing, prose or verse or whatever, writing music, writing a visual script, designing shapes and characters and scenarios, doing editorial work, doing the timing of the edit. Like, they're all very separate things that people like go and learn and work in a very specialized field and do and make money. But man, I think you become like, your core starts to rot if you don't always exercise all the things you love to do. And I think you need to learn more things to know how to do, because it contributes to the things maybe that you love to do, like animation in my case. Like, I don't want to stop playing music, because if I do, I think I won't be as good of an animator. I don't want to stop learning how to take life drawing classes. I do want to learn how to paint. I don't want to stop studying film. Those things, they all contribute to this one thing that maybe I love the most. And I don't want to stop getting up in front of people and speaking either, because it teaches me how my body projects itself properly, and I can bring that to animating too. So, I mean, that's kind of been like my thesis, for this last year, is because students have asked, like, okay, well, I've just finished Animation Mentor or something, and I want to be an animator. Should I? But I'm only 19, or like I'm in school and I don't feel school is giving me enough, or it's not teaching me how to be an animator enough, and I just want to go be an animator. And I'll always be like, no, you gotta be an artist first, because you can't be a good unless you learn how to be a creative person and be free and free up your mind to like all this stuff we were just talking about. Like, you need to give yourself the time to do that. And I feel like I take times in my life that I need to step away and just give myself time to do that. Be a rounded artist, and not just be an animator. So it's kind of like I said, it's kind of been my thesis for the month, and I'm hoping that I can get myself psyched into working on the Wizards shorts more again this year, so I can produce what I want to, and feel better about myself creatively.
Yeah. And that is a lesson too as well.
But there's a flip side to that. If I can add one last thing,
sure.
Like, there is also a tremendous joy to me, and I don't know if you feel this ever, but for bringing someone else's vision to life. I also have that. Like, in fact, I might have that a little more. That's what I struggle with, because I feel like I'm really good at listening to a director or a supervisor or a writer or whoever, or a client, and understanding what they want from their project, what they're envisioning as the end project to be, and make that happen, and maybe even a little better. Like, I love that. I love being commissioned to do something for somebody else's project, and so that's a struggle, because that's like a commercial artist mindset, versus an art for art's sake mindset. And I bet you there's a lot. I wonder actually if there's other people out there that have that same struggle, like trying to live in both worlds, but feel like both worlds can't live together. Yeah.
That's a great question for an upcoming one.
Yeah, that's a topic all by itself,
And I think, like, personally, I don't think those need to be mutually exclusive. I think they can be both.
Yeah.
You can, like, honestly, Ken, in an ideal world, you would see the need of somebody, and you're like, hey, I know how that works, or hey, I can make your life easier, like, or I walk that path, or
right.
And then you make something, and they're like, well, holy shit, you just literally just saved 10 years of mistakes for me, or I can now face 10 years of mistake,
right.
and they give you a little fee, and if enough people do that, you'd have a
Right.
ideally, I think you'd have a thriving business, but at the same side, you'd have like you would like honestly create stuff that makes a difference.
Yeah, and it brings people together, as all hippie as that sounds, like that's when you're able to realize somebody's idea for them or help them realize it, like you create such a great relationship with them. And then, of course, then when the audience sees it, hopefully you realize something for the audience, yeah, it's that's again that's the other kind of, I think that's the struggle I've had my whole creative existence, is that I like both things, and I think I maybe like doing things for other people a little bit more, but but then there's this like artist side of you that feels like, no man, you have to make your own stuff, and I like, but and I kind of do, and I like it, but yeah, so why, that's a topic for a whole conversation. It's like, what is your motivation for creating at all? Yeah. Not necessarily just finding it, but
I love how we talked for like a while, and then you start to see new opportunities in the discussion.
I know.
And I'm like, okay, we need like
so
more
part
time.
2 will come back. Yeah.
Well, who knows? Who knows what might happen?
I know.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, it's funny to kind of sit here and untie, especially just this last year. It's most of what we're talking about is just kind of the stuff I know I've just been thinking about a lot just in this last year of work. So I haven't really stopped to untie it, like that. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, Ken, thank you so much
man.
for your time and your wisdom and hard-earned experience. And
I got a long way to go, brother.
well, that's a good thing, because that'd be a pretty short end otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. Cool.
I'll post all your nice stuff below the video. You like anybody who's not seen your stuff, I would highly recommend they just jump straight to the store, because I love the tutorials you make, and you get such a good sense of who you are and what you think.
That's cool.
And all the other projects are so
preparing some new ones as well, so we'll see.
Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, man.
All
well,
right.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
and,
so great to see you.
Yeah, you too.